Welcome back to Just in Our Minds. I'm here with a very special guest, somebody I'm grateful to be able to call friend. He has over 170 fights. I think his record is 92, 22 and 5 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So he has over 120 pro fights. He's a pioneer for the MMA sport. His name's Jeremy Horn.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure for having you on. A lot of podcasts I listen to, and I hear a lot of like your MMA fighting stories, but I wanted to dive into like who is Jeremy Horn and how he got started too. So we can, if that's cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Of course.
And then were you originally from Nebraska?
Yep. I grew up in Omaha, born and raised. Yep.
All right. And then how like, where'd you come from as a kid? Like what was your, like, kind of like the psychology view as a child? Like where did and then we can get into where MMA and everything came forth.
So I grew up, I was raised by a single mother. She kind of had the habit of connecting with abusive alcoholic men. So my two older brothers and one younger brother, the four of us were raised by her alone. When my older brother, Matt, he's about 5 years older than me. He joined a local gym when I was 12. I thought it'd be fun to tag along and train with him, and never looked back. I fell in love with martial arts, and I trained pretty much every day until I was in my 30s. And then I started taking a weekend off here and there, but just kind of ran with it from there.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's wild. And then when did you start? Did you start with wrestling? That's one thing I didn't.
Well, so the gym that I originally joined, this was, let me think, how old was I? I was 12. So that was 87. So this is back in the day when the majority of martial arts were relatively isolated. So the Taekwondo guys were training over here. The karate guys were over here. The judo guys, the boxing guys, everybody was doing their own thing. MMA was still relatively unheard of. And the group that I joined was founded by a guy named Robert Bussey. And he started a system, I guess we'll call it. It wasn't really a style, but he started a system and a foundation, I guess we'll call it, called Robert Bussey's Warrior International. And his idea was kind of along the lines of what Bruce Lee wanted to do. He wanted to train for as realistic self-defense as we could. And we did a touch of the more traditional stuff. So we did a little bit of weapon stuff and some of the more formal traditional martial arts stuff. But mostly what we focused on was kind of modern for the time, just actual street fighting. So we would do a little bit of boxing, a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of karate, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, some of the traditional stuff. Like I said, this was in like the late 80s. So this was before the UFC ever started. And but that's really what his goal was to try to train people for a real no rules situation. And so we were doing that for a few years. And then when the UFC rolled around, it kind of gave us some direction. We're like, oh, that's what we've been trying to do this whole time. So we just slowly kind of gravitated more and more towards that. And then the handful of, training partners that I had at that gym, we all kind of jumped into fighting together. And then, like I said, I kind of turned out I had a bit of a knack for it. So I just kept fighting.
No, 100%. And that's, what age were you when you started that?
So I had I started doing that when I was 12. And then when I was probably 17 or 18, was when the UFC started gaining popularity. Maybe a little later than I don't remember.
Those are early 90s, right?
Yeah,
like 94, 95?
Yeah, somewhere around there, mid to early 90s. And so we just started seeing, a little bit more direction for what we were doing, because like the typical training in your typical martial arts school is a little bit different today, but back then it was, you go to the gym, you line up, everybody bows, you drill some techniques, and then maybe a little bit of sparring. It was like an hour-long practice. It wasn't like training for a fight like it is now, where now guys go to a gym and they'll train 2 or 3 hours straight, and it's a different mentality. So that's what we would do. And then when the UFC rolled around and we kind of started getting a little more vision of what it is we were looking at, we're like, oh, okay, we need to get some of these big square things that guys punch and get some gloves and actually work on a little bit of endurance and some combinations. And like I said, just giving us a little more guidance of actually what it meant to train like a fighter. So we started doing a little bit more of that. And then a local promoter was like, hey, we're gonna try this no holds fighting thing, no holds barred fighting we're gonna do. You guys want to give it a try? You're like, yes, please.
Yeah, right.
I want to try that.
What age were you for your first
I think
fight?
I had my first fight when I was 19.
Okay, 19.
So-
And then was this still like ring before like the chain link fence?
No, actually, my first fight is actually out there on the internet somewhere. This was kind of a weird story. So we got contacted by a guy that was helping a promoter that was putting fights together. We were in Omaha, and the fight was down in Atlanta, Georgia. And so he flew us down to Atlanta, put us up in a hotel, and then the day of the fight rolls around, they roll up in a limo and bring us to the fights. We don't know anything about this. The UFC, I think there had been one UFC, and MMA, NHB as it was called back then, was completely foreign. We don't have any gloves. I barely had a mouthpiece. I bought a mouthpiece the day before. And this guy shows up in a limo and he's like, all right, we're going to go to the fight. So we show up at the fight and we are in like the ghetto of Atlanta. He pulls up in the middle of the night in front of what looks like a hardware store. And we go in and it's like straight out of a snuff film. I thought that's kind of what it was. Like the metal corrugated roof with like the bare light bulb hanging by a cord. And we walk in and there's like a bunch of people in like tuxedos and evening gowns off in the corner drinking champagne out of those tall glasses. And there's some mats over in the corner.
Real life, was it blood sport? It's like
pretty much. And so the guy's like, all right, you guys are about the same size, so you guys are going to fight, and then you guys will fight, and then you guys will fight. And everybody's just looking around like, we have no idea what's going on. And these people over here are going to be watching and enjoying us. So there was no cage. There was no ring. They had just some wrestling mats down on the floor, and they had the walls were sort of padded in some areas. And they had these guys running around with those old school, like curved kicking shields, like from Taekwondo. Uh-huh. Their job was just to run around and be the barrier so that we didn't fall off the mats. So that was it. And they're just like, all right, you guys are going to fight. You ready? All right, go.
Was it like tournament style afterwards?
Just single fights for each of us.
How'd that one go for you?
I won that one, actually. Yeah.
Were you like when you first started fighting, like how were your nerves? Like I
was terrified.
Terrified? Okay. Yeah. That's a realistic answer.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was terrified. I mean, I was nervous about the fight, certainly, but I was actually terrified that the surroundings and the environment that we were in, no joke, I thought they were going to take us out in the ditch and kill us when we were
it was like a kumite.
Yeah. It was like, this is some kind of weird snuff film. They're going to watch us fight. Believe it or not, the pro wrestler, you follow pro wrestling at all?
Yeah.
The pro wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page, was in the audience watching me.
Really?
Fight. He was there. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, if that's early 90s, like he was like he was in the WCW, right?
Something like that. Yeah, he was a prominent, like in the prime of his wrestling career. Yeah.
That's cool. So, that's the kind of guy I would expect to see in the crowd too, with the blonde hair.
So there was like 8 or 10 fights that day, and then the promoter's like, "All right, thanks." Took us back to the hotel. We flew home the next day. Got a videotape in the mail a few weeks later with our fights on it. And
nice VC, or was it the VHS?
Yeah, the VHS, yes. For those of you out there that don't know, you
still got that video somewhere?
I do. Yeah. Actually, I'm going through all of some old videotapes and trying to convert them to digital files. Yeah. And I found the one that's got my original first fight on it.
Dude, that's amazing. I'm sure that's the best of. That's a seller.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
And then because I know you were like back in those days, you could be a weekly fighter, right?
Oh, absolutely.
As soon as promotions, as long as you had opportunity, weight classes weren't really a thing back then as much. So from 19, then how frequently were you fighting? Like what'd that look like?
So it really ramped up a couple of years later. So after that fight, I fell in love with it. I knew I loved it. I wanted to do it again as soon as possible. And then I actually got contacted. I'm not even really sure how we got in touch, but I got contacted by Monty Cox, who's now my manager and was a promoter of fights a couple of months after that one, I think it was. And he said, hey, I'm doing a 4-man tournament in the Quad Cities, Iowa, picking up NHB and going to run this. He had some experience in the boxing world. He had boxed a little bit himself and he had promoted a couple of fights, so he kind of knew a little bit about it. And so I entered into a 4-man tournament. And at the time, he was kind of taking the weight classes from the boxing world. And so he decided that anything above 190 was heavyweight. Mm-hmm. I was 195. He's like, okay, cool. I guess I'm a heavyweight. And the guy that I fought in the finals was 295.
Oh my gosh.
So we go over there, we fight. He actually, because he had come from the boxing world, he actually implemented some more regulations on his own. The sport itself was brand new and people did whatever they wanted, but he decided that, we would use weight classes. So 190 and up was heavyweight. We had some gloves that we used, like really small. I don't know. They don't even make them anymore. They were by the company called Kwon. Do you remember them? KWON. They made like old taekwondo equipment, karate equipment, like the foam dip gloves that everybody had. They made that.
Yeah, that weird like plasticky material.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had gloves made by them. He used rounds, although nobody really went into a second round because I think he did 10-minute rounds.
Especially with that big of a difference.
Yeah. So I fought there, and I won my first fight, and then I lost in the finals to the guy that was like 290. Go figure.
Yeah.
And then a couple of months after that, I decided that I wanted to move to Iowa because I met Pat Miletich that day. I met Monty and everybody. So
what was your background like other than the original style? Did you start getting, that was it?
That was it. Yep. I wrestled for about half a season when I was in 6th grade and it was hard. So I quit, but
Makes
I was
sense.
like 12, 11. I was like, I don't like this. This is hard. So I quit. So I started doing that. I decided I wanted to move to Iowa, and that's when the sport was really exploding. This was in, I think it was December of 98 when I moved to Iowa. And the sport was just exploding everywhere. Everybody wanted to be part of it. Everybody wanted to fight. Everybody wanted to watch fights. A ton of people wanted to promote fights. And it was really like the Wild West. So if you had a garage and a 10-foot by 10-foot square chunk of mat, you could sell tickets and do fights.
That's wild.
So so I fought in 99 and up into early 2000s. I fought pretty much every weekend, like some tournaments, some not. So I had like 35 or so fights in 1999.
When you got to the Miletich camp, like how much did that open your like horizon for MMA?
Quite a bit. Yeah. Well, because Pat had a background in competitive sports. So he wrestled all through college. He had done some kickboxing, done some boxing, and he had actually done some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He'd studied with Renzo Gracie a little bit. So when going over there, really the biggest thing was it was eye-opening to me to see what it's actually like to train for a fight. I'd go in and I'd fight with my friends a little bit. We'd do like some katas and we'd do a little bit of technique and then we'd just kind of fight each other. And Pat's like, no. We're going to start a clock. We're going to do, 5-minute rounds, 1-minute break. We're going to do, 5-6 rounds of sparring. We're going to do 5-6 rounds of wrestling. And then we're going to go to the gym and we're going to do some conditioning. And then we're going to run the hill. I was like, oh, okay. This is what it's like to actually be an athlete and train, for a sport. So that was really eye-opening to me because, like I said, Pat had experience in all of that. So we had done all of that.
How early were you there when it comes to like, I don't know when he started his, was it?
So on that first fight, the tournament that I did, he was actually the main event. And I think that was like his 7th or 8th fight.
Okay.
So and that was my 2nd and 3rd.
Because I know eventually you guys had like Tim Sylvia, Matt Hughes.
Yeah. So he was running a gym then, although it was really pretty small. I think I was the first or one of the first guys to move from out of state to come train with him. And then Tim Sylvia came later and Matt Hughes and Jens and Robbie. And Robbie was local, but he, picked up and started training with us. It just kind of slowly grew. And as the sport got more and more popular, and then Pat got a chance to fight in the Extreme Fighting show that was kind of a rival to the UFC early on, and then he got into the UFC, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, he had a pretty good run too.
Yeah.
He's like a
very talented guy, very hard worker, and he definitely was ahead of the curve. He was one of the first to recognize that you needed some form of striking, kickboxing, boxing, whatever. You had to learn how to wrestle. You needed some jiu-jitsu. You needed some conditioning. He was one of the first, if not the first guy that really understood, the composite nature of
dynamics of the sport. Exactly. It makes sense. I mean, and there seemed like everybody there was killers.
Yeah. We were training hard. And like I said, that was the biggest thing, is understanding all the different facets that needed to be done.
Exactly. And then having other high level individuals you can bounce off of, because they were it seemed like similar but different styles apparently.
Yeah, everybody kind of came to the table with their own specialty and kind of made everybody else better through that.
And then so what were some of the organizations that you started with, like other than, so you said this was about 20, you were fighting out of Iowa?
Yep. So there was a ton of small local promotions that were doing their thing. They do 2 or 3 shows and then fold up or whatever. So Hook and Shoot was one of the shows that actually hung around for a long time. It deserves a lot of credit for kind of helping the the grassroots nature of the sport because drawing a blank on his last name. His first name is Jeff. I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but he was the promoter that did the Hook and Shoot show, and he was a big pro wrestling fan, so he kind of understood how to promote things, and he put together a lot of fights. So they were down in southern Indiana, so I would drive down there and fight for them a lot. I had a dozen or so fights for them. Another guy named Brian Madden, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. I think he had a heart attack, but he did a show called Reality Fighting. Just so many local shows that people would do. But I fought in King of the Cage, the IFC. I fought in a couple of early UFCs.
What were some of your top fights like coming up? Was there anybody, any of the ones that stick out to you early on?
Yes and no. I mean, some of the fights that were more prominent. I mean, obviously I fought Frank Shamrock in my 7th or 8th fight. That was a big step up from fighting in cornfields to fighting in the UFC.
Was that the fight that you mentioned? I'm not sure how many times you fought Frank, but I
just the once, yeah.
Just the once, and you were expecting a certain type of Frank, and then you kept taking him down. And
well, yeah. So this was we fought in UFC 17, so the sport was growing a bit. People were starting to see what's what. I had like I said, I think I had 6 or 8 fights. And John Peretti at the time was the matchmaker for the UFC. And he and Monty were good friends. And he was at the show, another show where I fought for Monty, and I won a tournament there. And so John Peretti's like, all right, cool. We're gonna use you. I was supposed to be an alternate. I was supposed to fight Chuck Liddell as an alternate in the tournament. Do you remember the UFCs back in those days?
Yeah.
So UFC 17 was where Dan Henderson fought Carlos Newton and Bob Gilstrap, and there was one other, I forget who it was, but they were in a 4-man tournament, and I was supposed to be an alternate against Chuck Liddell for that tournament. And then they decided instead that they wanted me to fight Frank Shamrock because they were getting ready to put out a show called Night of Champions. That's when the UFCs were doing pay-per-views, right? They would do like one every 6 months. So it was a big deal. You get together with your buddies and watch the UFC.
It seemed like sometimes that they would strategically move people around, whether pride or whatever, like they would strategically kind of move people around to see who they wanted to.
Yep. So what they were planning on doing was they wanted to do a show where they were just going to replay all the old title fights. So like the title fight from UFC 1, UFC 2, and just show the main events. Well, these were all old fights. So in order to make it a pay-per-view, they figured they had to add at least one new fight or nobody's going to buy it. And the fight they added was me and Frank Shamrock. So we actually fought on the undercard, or not the undercard, I guess, on the kind of like what they call a dark match on UFC 17. Frank and I were the first fight of the night before they went live. So they filmed it so that they could have it later for the Night of Champions. But we actually fought on number 17. So yeah, I fought Frank, and I'd watched his fights coming up. And I knew, I'm like, this is Frank Shamrock, everybody's greatest fighter in the world, and blah, blah, blah. And the 2 fights before me, he fought Kevin Jackson and Igor Zinoviev. And he beat both of them in 30 seconds each. So I'm going into this fight, and I'm like, I'm just some kid from the Midwest. I got a half a dozen fights. I think I was like 7-1 or 8-1 or something like that, a handful of fights. I'm like, I'm okay.
And him and Ken are scary looking dudes.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to go fight Frank Shamrock for the title. Like, okay, let's see how this goes. But I knew that I was good enough that like nobody's going to beat me in 30 seconds. Like I didn't think I was going to win, but I thought I can survive. I grew up with 2 older brothers, man. I got my ass kicked every day. I know I can curl up in a ball and protect myself for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so I went into the fight fully expecting to lose. And I just thought, man, I can hang in there. I'm not going down that fast. I can last longer than a minute. And then he throws a kick at me, and I grab it and scoop it up and throw him on his head. And I was like, oh, wow, maybe he's not as good as I thought he was. So I get on top of him, and the fight goes away. You guys can find that fight. It's out there somewhere. But the whole time in that fight, I just kept thinking to myself, there's no way that I'm actually doing this well against Frank Shamrock. It's an accident. He's not paying attention. Any minute now, he's going to put it in gear, and I'm done.
You're just waiting. This is bait. He's baiting me in for something. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that got lucky there. And he's going to try this. Like, I caught him off guard there. He's any minute now, he's going to turn it on, and I'm done. And then it just never happened. So we go like 17 minutes, and I'm just mauling him easily. but I just couldn't mentally get it in gear and think, hey, I'm better than this guy. I can
Because
beat him.
rounds were bigger back then, right? Were they 10-minute rounds,
Well,
or was it one
no,
solid
in that
round back
fight we
then?
did, I think we did a 15-minute straight regulation period.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were going to do 2 3-minute overtimes, I think it was. And I don't remember exactly. I know we went 17 or 18 minutes. So I think we maybe went the regulation period and then the first overtime, and then we were going into maybe a second overtime.
Because it was like the 15 minutes, and then the judges decide. The
Right.
point system was a little different back then.
Well, I think
right?
they went to overtimes mandatory before they went to the judges.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, so 17, 18 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm better than this guy. I can beat him. I finally went out there and went after him, and then I made a mistake in a takedown and gave him my leg.
Was it a knee bar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just finally got it in gear and thought, man, I can beat this guy. I'm going to take him down now and beat him. And then I make a mistake that he capitalized on. So
Damn. So goes
that's
the
the way
story,
it goes.
right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, really, he was nowhere near as good as I expected. I was way better than him.
Would you say, not saying you had bad psychology towards fighting, but was that one of the fights that was maybe a pivotal, like, oh damn, like,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the sport was pretty new, and Frank Shamrock was one of the biggest names in the sport, and he had been the king of pancrase, and he'd done all this stuff, and he'd done all these things. So he was widely accepted as the greatest fighter in the world. And here I am, some kid from the Midwest that's been doing karate with my buddies in the garage,
yeah.
And I go out there and do that to him. And so after that fight, I thought, man, he beat me fair and square. He won, but he kind of got lucky. I'm the best fighter in the world.
Oh, 100% at that point.
I'm a 22-year-old kid walking around like an idiot. But that's the thing. I was like, man, Frank Shamrock is widely accepted as the best fighter in the world. And I just played with him like a cat with a mouse until I made a little mistake. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm the best fighter in the world.
Because you're like, he won because I fucked up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
If I would have known.
So, but yeah, I just, for a little while, I was like, man, I'm the greatest thing in the world.
For a lot of people, especially people at home or people that have never experienced a fight or anything like that, what are some of the biggest nerves for you, like backstage and overall, maybe
for
training
anybody
camps
that's ever had a fight, the fighting is a little bit different than other sports because there is, there's a little bit of concern of getting hurt, but really that's really kind of small. For the most part, what everybody is concerned with is performing well. You're going into a fight and this guy's going to try to hurt me, but nobody cares about getting hurt. That's just not a concern. I want to perform well. I want to do as well as I know I can do. I want to live up to the potential that I know I have.
And your team and everything else
exactly.
too. Yeah.
So, you go into a fight and you ask somebody right before they're walking out stage, like, are you scared of getting knocked out? Like, no. Are you scared of losing? Oh, I'm terrified of losing.
Yeah.
Like, are you worried this guy's going to knock your teeth out? And like, no, I don't give a shit if he knocks my teeth out. I don't want him to beat me. I don't want to lose, right? So it's not about injury. It's not about getting hurt. Nobody really cares about that. It's performance. I want to do well.
Yeah, you got a 6-week camp or whatever it is, and then you go out there. Worst thing you can do is just make Frank Shamrock's 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's the thing, I tell the guys at the gym the same thing. Like I try to explain to people how much of fighting, and really any competition, is mental. And I tell people, I go, look at it like this. You're getting ready for a fight and you got a choice. You can either go into this fight and flail like an idiot with your head down and land a lucky punch and knock the guy out so you win. Or you can put up the best fight you've ever had and perform incredibly well and lose a close decision. Which one would you rather have? Most people say, I'd rather lose a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather go into a fight where I can be proud of my performance and look back and go, yes, I fought really well. It didn't go my way, but I fought really well and I lost a decision, fine. Or I went in there and flailed and got lucky and knocked him out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess if there's a big amount of money on the line, that changes things.
Exactly.
But when you're thinking about just performance, man, I want a good performance more than I want a win.
And for you, you're an analytical fighter anyways. You try to find a way to capitalize and you're going to utilize that. Like like you said, I've heard it in the past. You're just like, sometimes it can be boring, but I'm here to win.
Yep. I want a performance that I can do well. And I figure if I put out a performance that I can be proud of, then probably that means I'm going to win.
And it's hard now too with these crowds, especially in UFC and these big organizations. People start booing and stuff like that. Then you see the fighters' psychology change, and then the dynamic of the fight changes because they're trying to appease the crowd.
It's kind of weird the way that's happening now, because for the longest time, people didn't understand the groundwork. The crowd is kind of uneducated and they just wanted to see people get knocked out. And as soon as somebody gets taken down, they start booing. Mm-hmm. And we could sort of accept that because we understood that the crowd didn't understand what they were seeing. And then they went through a phase where the crowd got a little more educated and they started understanding what it was, what grappling meant. And so they would be a little more appreciative of the grappling. But now it seems like it's kind of going backwards because the UFC and some of the other bigger promotions, they're really promoting and rewarding the fighters that just stand up and brawl. They don't really appreciate the grappling work. And of course the rules favor the strikers and it's like I get it. It's fun to watch a cool knockout.
Right. It's the transition between it being like just martial arts or MMA and now it's the sport version, right?
Yeah. Now it's more like just, it's what's the word? They want to be more fan friendly. It's a spectator sport, so you got to make the fans happy, and they do the same thing in every sport. I know one of the easiest examples is like in basketball. I don't know anything about any sports, but basketball is one of the ones I had heard of. You follow basketball at all?
No basket hoops for me either.
I do know that one of the things they introduced to make the game more fan friendly was the shot clock. Right? Otherwise, one team would just hold the ball forever and they would never take a shot until they had a perfect shot to win, to score a point. And so they started introducing a shot clock to make the game more exciting for the fans. And the players hated it. Like,
if you look at like BKFC, the short rounds, like same concept, right? It's like a shot clock.
Yep.
You have to get it off. You have 2-minute rounds?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a hard line because as a fighter, I want to win. I want to perform well. I appreciate the fans. I don't want it to sound backwards, but like I don't fight for the fans.
No.
I fight because I want to test myself and I want to go fight. And I love the fans and I love that they appreciate the sport. But when I'm in the ring, I'm fighting my fight.
Yeah, especially like American fans, because you can see in Japan and Korea and different places that you fought, it's a different culture. Like they appreciate things a little differently and they look into it more. So you said you're about 7 fights in. You got pro fights. That's when you started with the UFC, and then you ventured out of the UFC, correct? Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So back then, the UFC didn't really use contracts the way they did now. So it was a single fight contract. I fight Frank Shamrock. They're like, thanks, here's your money. Go on, do what you want. So I would fight, I fought Frank Shamrock in the UFC, in the biggest sport in the world. And then a month later, I'm fighting back in the cornfields on, Billy Bob's show, fighting Joe from the,
just to get your
7-Eleven. Yeah, just because I want to fight. I don't care.
And then you were literally fighting week after week.
I fought every weekend. I fought every weekend I could. Sometimes I'd fight in an 8-man tournament on Friday and then drive somewhere else and fight again on Saturday.
Like Roadhouse rules, like in a bar, right? Yep. The chain link fence. I've seen plenty of those fights again.
Yep. Just everybody was doing fights and nobody was regulating anything. So if you wanted to fight, you could fight as often as you wanted to.
And then, so what came next once you were traveling to some other than UFC? Was it Shooto Box? And then there was who else did you fought?
I fought in a show called Rings in Japan.
That's the one that was stand up and ground kind of separate.
Yep. So most of the ones in Japan were mixed rules like that. So Rings had kind of a unique perspective. So most of the organizations in Japan come from a pro wrestling background. Pro wrestling is hugely popular in Japan. They love it, but they treat it a little bit differently. Here in the States, pro wrestling is there's a huge the fans love it. It's a huge interest for them, but everybody kind of understands that it's fake. And in Japan, it's the same thing, but they blend a little bit of reality into it. They do what they call, it's called shoots, like a shoot. That's where shoot fighting came from. But basically what that means is it's kind of a hard style. Like you and I are going to go in there and fight, and we're going to actually fight, but we've already agreed that I'm going to win. At some point, you're going to let me win, but we're going to fight up until then. So it's actually a hard fight with a predetermined end. And so a lot of the pro wrestling from Japan came like that. And so all of the fight organizations kind of started that way, and Rings was one of them. So the way they would do it is standing up, you could punch and kick if you wore gloves. And if you wanted to throw knees and elbows, you had to wear knee and elbow pads. But on the ground, you were not allowed to do any striking except punching to the body. And so what they wanted this blend to do was standing up, you'd get very dynamic striking, cool kickboxing. And then on the ground, you'd get very dynamic grappling, because that's what they wanted. They want to see exciting fights where people are doing cool things. And that's what the Rings organization did. And then when they branched off into more real fights, it kind of hurt them a little bit, because imagine a pro wrestling match with guys like jumping off the ropes and landing on each other and stuff like that. But it's kind of real. They're actually hurting each other a little bit. And then now suddenly it's a real fight without a predetermined ending against two guys that are actually trying to win. Well, now that fight looks kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's one guy sitting in the other guy's guard, punched him in the ribs for 15 minutes, to win a decision. And the Japanese crowd was like, well, this isn't what we want. Where's our exciting fights? Where's the cool stuff? So rings didn't last much longer after that, but they put on a handful of really good shows early on. So
it seemed like very technical, very,
mm-hmm.
very
So-
sports specific, or not sports specific, very MMA driven. That's cool. Like, what's the difference too? Because like, I'm guessing going in between instead of just being able to like throw punches and kicks. Like, was there like how was that like from a aspect of a fighter of being like, oh well, I can't do this now, having to switch rule sets a little bit in between?
It really didn't bother me much because I'm primarily a grappler anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're telling me I can't punch somebody in the face on the ground. I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't punch people much anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a big deal for me. I think some people that hurt their style a lot, their strategy got hurt a lot because they're, not quite as skilled on the ground, and their biggest weapon was being able to punch people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you can't punch people in the face on the ground, and you don't have any other tools if you're not a good grappler.
Yeah.
So for
Smash,
me, it wasn't
bash,
a
and
big
punching
deal.
for some of these wrestlers
exactly.
and stuff.
For me, it wasn't a big deal, but I think for a lot of other people, it hurt them.
Yeah. Just going back to when did you actually start? Was it Pat Milich's camp that you started jiu-jitsu? And then how was the transition between
So this is another bit of an anomaly. So when I was back in Omaha training with my buddies, we would, back then we'd watch any fights we could get a hold of. I'd any instructional videos I could think of. And like I said, I met Pat at my first fight for Monty. And so he would come and train with us a little bit. So I kind of started getting a touch of what jiu-jitsu was. But up until that point, it was just watching fights and like, okay, well, this guy on the bottom has his legs wrapped around the other guy. And I remember in UFC 4, when Royce Gracie beats Dan Severn, he triangles him in the finals. And that was one where the UFC, they hadn't thought about time limits and the pay-per-view slot. So they would buy a 3-hour chunk for pay-per-view, but sometimes the fights would go long if they didn't have any time limits.
Mm-hmm.
So for that fight, the Royce Gracie Dan Severn fight actually ran long and the pay-per-view cut off.
Oh.
So right in the middle of the fight, pay-per-view ends. Because they paid for a 3-hour block. That's it. Fight,
Talk about a cliffhanger.
Yeah. And I can't remember why, but I think my buddy, maybe he had like a pirated one or whatever. So he was watching it and he was explaining it to us and we didn't know what it was. And he's like, yeah, the little guy's laying on his back and like he's somehow got his legs wrapped around the other guy's head and then the big guy quit. We're like, what the hell was that? What do you
mean? Yeah.
And finally I watched the video and he triangled him.
Yeah.
But before that, I'm like, what did he's like? I'm thinking like he, crossed ankles and like scissoring his head or something, trying to squeeze his head like he did to your younger brother. But yeah, so just figuring stuff out like that, watching fights and be like, all right, this guy's on the bottom. Why does he has his legs wrapped around here? Like, oh, he flipped him over. Now he's on top. Let's rewind that and see how he did that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of learning a lot from there and just kind of picking up bits and pieces here and there. And
I guess back then too, depending on the way you looked at it, like it was like a surprise. You'd expect the bigger guy to win most of the time,
Absolutely,
and you don't when it came to the Gracies, you're like, oh dang, well whatever they're doing is something.
Yep.
You got to learn this thing.
Yeah, I got to figure out whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Like he's got his legs wrapped around his waist. Okay, so that must be a good thing. Let's try to do that.
So then, what was the first year you actually got into jiu-jitsu?
Well, Pat had done some jiu-jitsu. Like I said, he trained with Enzo a little bit and done some, got some instructional videos. That was back in the day. Videotapes were being sent all over everybody's, So I didn't really learn anything formally from anybody. I guess Pat showed me a little bit. So I went to a couple of seminars and just little bits and pieces here and there. I'd pick up, just fighting and learning and trying to figure it out. And then I'd watch somebody do something and go, oh, he did that with his leg and it made them turn the guy over. So I'm going to start trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of kind of fumbled through it. Pat came and did a seminar when we were still in Omaha and kind of gave me a little bit of a foundation of what it means to kind of protect some space, like a hip escape and that kind of thing from the mount. And then John Lewis came and did a seminar while we were still in Omaha, him and Igor Zinoviev actually, after they had fought in extreme fighting after a few years after that. And he gave me a huge eye-opening idea of what it was to use the butterfly guard.
Oh, that's probably huge.
Oh, that was huge. And I fumbled around a lot and I floundered a lot. But when I started developing that and started learning how to use that, it became a big tool for me. Obviously, it's one of the biggest things I do now. So I would just pick up a little chunk here and there. and just keep working and keep training with my friends and just trying shit until it worked.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's always one thing that somebody always catches you in,
Yeah.
then you have to figure out. Back then, too, you have to literally figure it out.
Yep.
Find a VHS tape or ask Pat or whoever.
Yep. And just like rewinding it over and over and over until the videotape's getting worn out because I'm trying to figure out how that guy did something.
Exactly. And then back then too, like, so then you go to rings, and then after rings, also, like, how was Japan? Like, how was that for you? I mean, you're in your 20s, right?
Yeah.
You're what, 23, 24, something like that?
Something like that. Japan is incredible. The culture over there, particularly as it pertains to professional fighting, is amazing. Like in the US, it's getting a little bit better now, but pretty much, the whole American exceptionalism thing does take a little bit of a negative turn sometimes because if you win, you can be an undefeated fighter in America and then you lose your first fight and you fucking suck. Get out of here. You might as well go retire. You were always a bum.
Yeah, the fair weather fans.
Yeah. But in Japan, they're not like that. They don't care. Like, you watch two guys fight and the guy that wins will have a line of people that want his autograph and the guy that lost will have a line just as big.
And that's what I hear. They find out you're a fighter or a pro fighter. It's like, depending on, you're like almost like an instant celebrity for them too.
Because they don't care. They're like, look, you're a professional athlete. You're willing to get beat up to entertain me and I love you. That's it. They don't care.
And promotions too. Like I hear it's usually packed houses for a lot of those areas.
Absolutely. They love professional fighting. They respect people on both sides of it. They understand that if you're fighting talented people, you're going to lose sometimes, and they don't care.
So then between that, the Frank Shamrock and everything, you're starting, I'm sure you're starting to get a little bit of
a little bit. I mean, after fighting Frank Shamrock and realizing that I'm the best fighter in the world, and then, I'm going back and fighting a lot of, other lower level shows and like, I started developing a little bit of an ego. I'm like, nobody can beat me.
And those wins keep going up.
I had like 30 or 40 fights in a row and nobody beat me. And I'm like, I'm a god. I'm unbeatable.
Yeah, and that's crazy too. With this like 30 fights in like a year.
Yeah, I fought pretty much every weekend. And sometimes they were tournaments. So I'd have, 5 or 6 fights in a weekend.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Because back then, 2 tournaments were like 5 or 6 fights, right? And then 2 days, right? So, sometimes. Yeah. And then so after rings, what was some of the next organizations?
So I fought in rings probably a dozen times. I fought in the organization Pancrase. It's kind of a rival of rings. Similar story, similar background. And they didn't do they.
Did you have gloves back? It was Pancrase gloves.
So Pancrase didn't use gloves. You could hit them with an open hand.
Yeah.
And honestly, you could hit them in the face on the ground, but you could not punch at all.
Because that's what
you could punch the body.
Boss was real big for Pancrase, right?
And what they did was it was kind of a gentleman's agreement. It was kind of the honor system. So you could hit them with an open hand if you wanted to, even on the ground. But they just kind of agreed not to. So they would do it standing and they'd punch and kick each other to the body. But on the ground, everybody agreed that it was just going to be kind of a grappling scenario.
Was that also in Japan?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one was in Japan too. So, and I only had one fight for Pancrase. But yeah, so that was a fun one. And then I fought in Pride a couple of times as well. So rings was the one I fought for the most.
Yeah. And then Pride, I forget who you fought in Pride.
I fought Akira Shoji and Gilbert Eiffel.
Okay. Yeah. You fought a who's who of everybody, like looking across the board. I remember we were sitting, in your office or at the gym, we're talking about something, probably something to do with social media or whatever. And so after class, and then I was like, man, can you imagine fighting? I was like, Anderson Silva. And you're like, yeah, I can. I did. And I was like, what? I was like, yeah. You're like, told me about that fight. And that was
exactly what it's like.
Yeah, that was Shooto Box, right? In Korea?
So that it was in Korea. Yeah, it was in Seoul. And that was one of those shows that, well, so let me back up. So a lot of the Asian organizations, they're all kind of related because a lot of them are run by the Yakuza.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Little tattooed fellas.
Yeah, exactly. It's, kind of like that unspoken, don't talk about it, don't look at it. But a lot of the organizations would do that. So it would be, in January, it's this ABC event and it's run by these guys that we don't know. And then in March, that event's done. And now we're doing an XYZ event and you're seeing all the same people. But it's a different name, different organization, different event, same thing. So the show that I fought Anderson Silva on was called Gladiators. And I think they only did 2 shows in Korea. And that's it.
Yeah, I remember as the ring. That was the one that you power bombed him off the ropes. So I'm like, I thought you won. Yeah. I think you won that fight. But and then was it in Japan and Korea and stuff like that? Was it a lot of like the hotel room cash bag? Like they bring you, they just bring you cash. You got to figure out how to get home.
Cash. Yeah. It's like no joke. Like you see the the gangster rap music videos where guys have stacks of money like
Yeah.
that. Same thing.
Yeah. And
Like, oh, we're gonna pay you $100,000 for this fight, and it's literally stacks of cash. So
just bring it to you in a plastic bag.
Yep, just throw it in a backpack and hope that they don't bother to check it when you're flying
Yeah.
back
Oh
home.
my gosh. I'm sure. And
Yeah.
from what I hear too, like overseas is probably the better fight, especially back then for money, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because again,
Life changing.
I don't know what the deal was, but a lot of money in the Japanese organizations, probably some money laundering going on at some point. But yeah,
and betting and everything else too. I'm sure.
And obviously, the industry was huge over there because they had such a huge culture supporting it. So it definitely was better. I mean, you get a 10,000 seat arena here, and it'd be hard to fill, but in Japan, 100,000 seats is nothing.
Exactly. And then some of those are probably multiple day tournaments and things like that too.
Yeah.
And then so did you fight for Bellator ever?
Yeah, you did. One fight for Bellator.
I think. Okay.
Yep.
And then you eventually, in between there, is there any other organizations that I missed in there?
Yeah. So I fought in the IFC. That was an earlier one as well. I fought in King of the Cage.
Which you had a few in King of the Cage, right?
Yeah, I had 3 or 4 for them. It was kind of an interesting deal with them. So when I fought for them, they signed me to a contract, and at the time, Vernon White was the champ in light heavyweight for them, 205. And he actually was a pretty smart guy because he was a good fighter. He was better than the crop of people in that area. And so he had it written into his contract. I was told he had it written into his contract that no challenger could make more money than him. And so he kind of guaranteed that he was never going to face an opponent that could beat him because all the people that were good enough to beat him would never fight for so little, except me. And so the promoter's like, hey, we got this deal. We can't pay you a lot because he's got this clause in his contract, but will you come fight him? Like, yes, I will.
Yes, I will. I wouldn't mind that belt.
Yeah. Like, I don't care if you're only going to pay me $500. I want to fight. So I will fight him. So yeah, I fought him and beat him. And got them away from him. They said that they didn't like dealing with him, and
Oh, so you helped them out, huh?
Yeah, I helped them
got
out,
him away from the contract.
So yeah.
And then so after that, then so you fought in Bellator, and then you made your way back to UFC, and that's when the contracts probably changed around that time a little bit more.
Yeah, they changed a little bit. Like, so when I fought Frank Shamrock, I got $2,500 for a title fight. $2,500.
And what year is that? Like 2000?
99?
Okay.
2000 maybe?
Yeah.
Right around there. Yeah. So
so that'd be making what, like 10 now for a title? Maybe?
Yeah.
8, something like that.
Yeah.
Which it's crazy for a professional sport.
In the sport today, if you're fighting for the title in the UFC, you're making in the millions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got $2,500. But yeah, so I fought Frank. I fought probably a handful of other guys. And then in and out of the UFC. Then when I come back, now Chuck is the champion, and he has decided that he wants a rematch with everybody that ever beat him. So he's pretty good friends with Dana White in the UFC, and he's like, hey, I want you to bring Jeremy back. I want you to bring Quentin Jackson back. He wanted to fight with everybody that had ever beat him. So now I come back, and now they're like, okay, we're going to pay you $25,000 to fight him. That's a little bit different. Still not today's money, but definitely better. So the way they do their contracts is basically you've got like a show purse and then a win bonus. So it was $25,000 to fight, and I would have gotten another $25,000 if I had won. So $50,000 for the fight, and then if you win, they would usually go up. So
and that was for a title too, right?
Right.
So then things change after you.
And that's generally the way it works. So if it's not a title fight, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of the same. So they'd do a contract and they'd say, okay, it's going to be 25 and 25. 35 and 35, 45 and 45. But that's stipulating that you win. So if you win your first fight, you'd get 50, and then your next fight would be 35 and 35.
Was that a multiple fight contract for that fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the UFC has the decision if they want to use your fight, even if you lose, they don't mind. They're like, yeah, we'll just, we'll do it anyway, but you stay at 25 and 25. So, and they might cut you if they choose to, but that's kind of their discretion. So I lost my second fight for Chuck, and they brought me back, and I think I fought Trevor Prangley next.
With Chuck, it was something to do with your eye, right? Something happened with your eye?
Yeah, kind of. He just hits really hard at that point. In the first fight, he didn't punch so hard. In the second fight, he hit really hard. And going into the fourth round, he had already hit me a lot, and Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah,
He
I
caught me with
remember
one
that.
more punch. I'm like, man, I can barely see straight. I'm seeing triple the
Yeah.
whole fight. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember.
I don't want to
that.
keep
I'm
doing
like,
this. This
I wouldn't
sucks.
want to get hit by that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. He punches pretty
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, no, it seemed like it. That was a good fight though. Yeah, I remember that was like the house I was in too is like such a huge Iceman fan, and
Yeah.
I was a big fan of you growing up too. So like it was interesting to like run into you at your gym. I remember the first time I met you, I was like, "Oh man, that's Jeremy Horn. That's crazy." But yeah, and I grew up in right near Five Cities, so like San Luis
Nice.
Obispo was right there.
Okay.
I remember I thought I was really good at MMA, and I went to the pit, and I was 18, and I found out I was not good at all.
It's a bit of an eye opener for most people. That I can
It
do
was a
this. And I
legit
beat up my
gym.
friends in the backyard, and then you go to a real gym, and it's an eye opener.
Oh man, yeah, I was able to spend a couple days there. I think that was still when Tim Kennedy and Glover and all those guys were there, and I got the crap kicked out of me.
Different story for a
yeah,
lot of people.
100%. But anyways, yeah. So I forgot that you. So was it? Did you guys have you and Chuck have 3 fights total?
No, just 2.
Just 2.
Chael, I had 3 fights.
Okay, and then so the first fight was that one in Strike Force?
No, that was actually on Monty's show on Elite Extreme Challenge.
Okay, Extreme Challenge.
So the trilogy with Chael is kind of a funny one. So for our first fight, I was scheduled to fight on Monty's show, and my opponent got hurt about 2 weeks out. And so Chael volunteered. They called him, and he volunteered to come in and fight me on like 2 weeks or maybe less notice. And so I beat him. And then for our second fight, he actually had a fight scheduled on Sport Fight, which was his promotion. That's what Matt Lindland and Randy and those guys, they did their own show out in Portland. And they asked me to come out and replace him when his opponent got hurt on like 2 weeks notice. So I go out and fight him and beat him again. And then our third fight was the one in the UFC where we actually were scheduled to fight, and we both, had our third fight. I beat him again.
Again, 3 for 3.
So,
yeah, I know he still talks about that too.
Yes, I think like obviously he's a talented fighter,
Yeah.
and he's an incredible marketer and promoter. But
Another big wrestling fan,
Yeah.
like his promoting is
yes, I think
top notch.
I just got his number. That's
That's good.
that's the way it goes
yeah.
sometimes.
I mean, you could see it. I think you won by triangle, right? Was it one of them was a triangle?
Well, yeah. So the first time I actually split him open. I hit him with an elbow and split him open really
was
bad.
it from the bottom?
No, I took him down in our first fight, and I pinned him in the corner because back then we were fighting in a square cage, so it had corners. Kind of a funny story. So I take him down. We're in half guard. I sit up. I hit him with an elbow real bad. Like it sounded like a baseball getting knocked out of the park. It was bad. But didn't seem to hurt him much. So I sit up and I blast him with an elbow, and then I put my head back down on his chest, and I look up, and my head's here, and so I'm looking up at him, and I see blood coming out of his forehead like a fountain. I look up and I go, "Are you okay?" And he wipes his head. He's like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And so we keep fighting for a couple 30 seconds longer, and then the referee stops it. And the cut was so bad they had to stop it.
Yeah, it was a gape. It was open,
was
right?
bad.
His eyebrows hanging off.
Well, so if you look at him now, look at any of his fights, you can see he's got like a big Harry Potter jagged lightning bolt on his forehead. That's me.
I turned him into Harry Potter. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
I do see that. I didn't realize that
But
was you.
it was kind of funny because it was a local show, smaller show, and the doctor was walking around with Chael pulling his skull open, going, "Look, you can see his skull. You can pull his skin open and see his skull."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Dang.
So then in our second fight, in Sport Fight, I ended up guillotining him. He shot a takedown on me, and I caught him in a choke. And then in our third fight was the one in UFC, and it was technically an arm lock, but first it was a normal plata, and then it was a triangle, and then it was a normal plata again, and then it became an arm lock.
Okay, that's one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
That's the most famous one. That's what most people have seen.
Yeah, I mean, those are good. That was honestly, I mean, of course we're going to love MMA now, and we could be biased, but that was some of my favorite years of when it was coming up.
That's when a lot of fighters were kind of right in the middle between a lot of like raw aggression and talent, and then a lot of people that are actually learning and developing skill. So it was kind of a good time.
I feel like
a lot of aggression,
kind of like the last generation of like specialists too, right? Somewhere within there, and then now you have these freak athletes that are just born with everything.
Yeah, it's I still love the sport, but you're right. We're seeing more and more people that are just highly athletic with really not the most spectacular skill set. They're just highly athletic and what's the word I'm looking for? Like just broadly mediocre at everything, but they're high level athletes.
And they can put it together, right?
Yeah. And then you see some of the specialists that still rise to the top that are really good at what they do. So But yeah, for the most part, it's a lot of athleticism.
Who are your if you had to pick five UFC fighters, or I guess you could say Bellator or wherever, but usually UFC has the best caliber right now. Who do you think are your top five for?
I'm a huge fan of the more technical guys. So Ilia Topuria is one of my favorite. I love guys that have precise defense and head movement that can move the way he does.
His striking's crazy.
Any of those guys, Jack Della Maddalena, that guy's, any of those guys. Islam is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Hamzat's great.
Mm-hmm.
I all those guys. Like whether you're a grappler or a striker, when you've got like just overwhelming dominance in a particular style, I love it. I'm a huge fan. I'm not a big fan of the brawlers and the knuckleheads, the guys that just that's fun to watch.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it'll get you out of your seat, but
yeah, like think about it like this: if you are watching fights, how many fights would you like to watch again?
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'll watch a Conor McGregor fight. I'll watch that over and over again. I'll watch Dustin Poirier fight repeatedly. I'll watch replays of his fights. But like some of the big goons that just wade in throwing haymakers, like it's fun to watch once, but I'm not going to watch that fight again.
Yeah. I mean, even, I guess they have their lane, like a Derek Lewis or someone like that.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. It's fun to watch him fight when it's live, but if you're like, all right, here's the fight, Derek Lewis wins by knockout in the third round, what are you going to do? You're going to fast forward to the third round and watch the highlight knockout. Yeah. You're not going to watch the whole fight because the rest of the fight's not interesting.
Yeah, unless you like the Volkov, where you just watch Volkov do his thing and then at the end, whap.
But yeah, you watch Maddalena or Topuria, like, look, this guy won a decision. Well, I want to watch every round of that fight. I want to see everything he's doing.
Because you missed it, right? Movement. You miss things. So you have to go back and watch it again. Yep. So. There's another guy. There's another guy coming up right now I think he's from Ireland. He fights similar to, I forget his name off the top of my head. He fights similar to Connor. His striking is pretty fun to watch. I forget his name. I don't know why
I know there was one guy I saw that was in kind of a highlight reel. Everybody was calling him kind of the Timu Connor. Same thing. Got some tattoos, blonde guy, real arrogant. He got knocked out though. So.
Yeah, he get knocked out recently. Yeah, he was fun to watch.
Yeah.
And then so you have 3 fights in the UFC, and then you go against so then you had Shannon you fought
and I fought Trevor Prangley, and then I think I had one other. And then one of my I think my last fight in the UFC was I fought Paul Harris. Paul Harris.
Yeah, that's right. And then when did you start your gym?
So I moved here to Utah in 2003, I think, and I started the gym in 2004.
2004?
Yeah.
So what's that?
Right about 20 years ago.
20 years ago? Yeah. That's crazy. That's a long time.
I know. I still, in my head, I still think of myself as like a 25, 30-year-old guy. And to think I did something 20 years ago, like, no, that's when I was 10. Like, well, no,
dang it.
Guess it's actually not.
Yeah.
20 years ago was when I was 30. So
yeah, that's crazy. And for you too, I mean, I guess you've had so many highlights throughout your life that like, it seems like they probably blend together because you like someone like yourself. It's cool. You probably maybe hypothetically, it seems like you lived a few lives. Like you've had a few lives, the layers to it. So you have the fighter, the normal guy before fighting, and then fighting takes up a big part of your life. And now it's through now you're going through the coach, the master splinter, right?
Yes. And that's a huge, very rewarding for me when I can take some of the guys that have some aptitude and like. It's easy to take an athletic guy and just watch him fight and be like, yeah, he wins. But to take a guy that's actually willing to learn and apply strategy and technique and somebody that really absorbs the mental side of things for me is very rewarding.
When you have the remote control and you're in the fight and you tell them to do something, you're like,
hey, put your head over here, now put your arm over here, now put your leg over here. Okay, now you just
see it.
Yeah, that's very.
You're like, this is literally like a video game. Yep. We know you love your video games.
Yes.
And indeed. Then nowadays, so when did you get into shooting?
What red-blooded American boy doesn't love guns?
Exactly.
I've been, playing with guns my whole life, but I started getting into competitive shooting in about 2020. I just decided, like, as my fighting career was kind of winding down, I'm a competitor by nature, so I got to do something competitive. So I started looking into more competitive shooting, and I've been doing that for, like I said, for about 5 years now. And yeah, I love it. I shoot
And then
constantly, and
you're helping out a ton of people in the
Yeah.
process. And I think that's a big thing too, with like fighters or anybody it's sports specific or, you know, actors or whatever it is, like business owners. And there we go. I knew I was going to do it at least one time. They're, they get so wrapped up in this thing, right? Like that I'm sure it happened to you and everybody else is like, I am a fighter. And then for you to find, other than opening up your gym, becoming a coach, it's hard. I think it's hard for some people to be able to let go of those things. And you see these fighters keep coming back. I know you've had your boxing matches and things like that since then, but you know, you take it serious, but you also know you're like, hey, you know,
I still would love to fight. Cause like I said, still in my head, I'm 25 years old in my brain. You know, I watch fights or I'll see guys train and I'm like, man, that guy sucks. I could whip his ass. And then I get up and I'm like, oh, my back hurts. Nope. I guess I am,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, so it is hard because I still watch fights. And I'm like, man, I could do that. I could beat that guy. And then I go to move. I'm like, oh, nope, my wrist hurts. My shoulder hurts. My back hurts. I guess I can't do it like I used to. But yeah, so it's nice to have something else to kind of slide over into. Obviously coaching and training guys is still very rewarding, but I got to do something competitive myself. So,
and then competitive shooting takes that. And I mean, I'm sure that it's a similar feeling, you know,
absolutely.
like you have something that's very dangerous in your hand or can be, you know, hypothetically, and then you're doing something that for timed.
Yeah. I find it's a little bit more difficult for me, just because of the nature of the way it works. So in a fight, like, you know, the referee says go, and I have several opportunities, right? As a grappler, I need to take you down and try to get you into submission, make you quit. Well, if I shoot a takedown and I fail, I can try again. As long as I don't get knocked out, I get up, keep trying to. So I get multiple tries to get the job done. But in the competitive shooting world, the way it works is you basically get one try. You're like, all right, here's what you're going to do. You get a couple of minutes to kind of strategize and look through it now. Like, okay, when I hit this beep, you've got to go do it. And you get one chance to do it.
And you're trying to do things in milliseconds, right?
Yeah,
it is like,
incredibly
because I remember you've taken me a couple times to be able to, and I'm like, ugh.
But that's the thing. So you get one try. If you fumble something, if you screw something up, that's it. You get one try. So yeah, it's challenging for me because I don't get the multiple tries. I don't get to redo it if I screw it up. I get one chance. I got to do it right the first time.
And you got to wait for the next comp or whatever it is, you know.
So yeah, so it's still very challenging. It's still very fun, but yeah, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I bet that, and it's a whole new dynamic. I'm sure the learning, the process, the whole. It's almost. I'd say it's kind of like a martial art in itself. Once you get to that level, you know, especially
that's
like
kind of where I think a lot of it comes from is
being able to figure out what trigger pull or what is it, that wall and different things like that you want to figure out for your.
I've always thought, like my entire fighting career from the early days of martial arts, I've always looked at it as like fighting is fun. But I've always looked at it as a self-defense perspective. Like I train in martial arts because I want to know how to defend myself. I carry a gun because I want to know how to defend myself. Going into the ring and fighting competitively is fun, but I'm still looking at that as a way to train to get better to defend myself. And shooting is the same way. I train to shoot, and shooting matches is fun, but I'm still doing it with the mindset of I want to get good at this so that I can defend myself. And so, yeah, I mean, I train people to shoot. I train people to fight. You know, I want to make people good.
And is that like a nonprofit for yourself? Do you actually have for doing, sorry, if I could explain that, for like helping, because you help military, police, like any kind of first responders, right?
Yeah. So I do a lot of work with the local law enforcement. I run a class at the gym that's free for law enforcement. I'm also technically an employee of Sandy PD. I'm their DT instructor, or one of them. And then I work, I've got a state position as well, training the local law enforcement cadets at Post is what it's known as. But it's basically the local college, I guess you'd say, for cops. So yeah, I spend a lot of time training them, both firearms and hand to hand. And, you know, I love teaching people.
Well, it's a scary thing. I remember training at your gym too, is that you have some of these police officers come in at the beginning and they can't do anything.
Yeah.
You know,
people don't realize like that's
doesn't matter their size
I don't know if
or
you
weight.
want to go down that rabbit hole, but that gets to be an ugly one because people are incredibly harsh on cops, and people don't understand how inadequately cops are trained to do their job. It's like, you know, 15 minutes of work. Here's a gun. Here's a badge. Go go risk your life to protect people. Do the best you can. Hope you don't die.
Right. It's like the same thing as like doctors is like they have so much to cover in a small amount of time and they don't have 14 years of training to become a police officer.
Right.
You know, it's your choice after that to be able to do stuff, work with someone like
right.
yourself. But yeah, we can dig into that a little bit if you want to.
Well, yeah, it's just that's basically the gist of it. I mean, just being, you know, everybody hates cops. Everybody bags on them so hard, and they don't understand. Like people have this idea that if you're a cop, you're automatically, you know, you're John Wick and RoboCop combined, and you can think perfectly, and you're fearless, and you can do everything right. But the truth of the matter is, you take any average person in society and train them for a month, and then say, okay, here's a gun and a badge and a car. Go do your best. Go into that guy's house and tell him that he's making too much noise and his neighbors are angry at him, and see what happens.
And by the way, you're working night shifts because you got to start at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a thankless job. They get no respect. They get no credit. They get no support.
And a lot of them are good people. And they fine tune the 10% or whatever it is that are the bad ones.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they give you a bad rap for everybody across the board. No, I agree. It's hard. There's so many good people, and the whole reason they start. Well, there's some that maybe not.
Sure.
But for the most part, they want to save your grandma. Like that's why they started their job.
Yeah.
You know,
they're humans like everybody else. In any industry, you're going to find a few that maybe shouldn't be doing that job. But yeah, for the most part, the vast majority of law enforcement are there because they want to help. They want to make society better. They're trying to protect their fellow man. So.
And it's for a lot of them too. It's scarier for them. You know, like their life is literally in danger. Yours might necessarily not be. You'll get a ticket or something. Yeah. You know? Might go to jail, but. Yeah, it's so what are we looking at in the future? Like, what do you have coming up? Do you have? I mean, apparently you're always going to have fighters and any good fights coming up.
So yeah, we got a couple of guys fighting. Let me see. We got Mike Jones is fighting in the bare knuckle show in Montana. I want to say it's December.
Number one heavyweight in Utah.
yeah, exactly. And then the week after that, on December 20th. I've got, let's see, we got 3 or 4 people fighting. So I've got Julian Gomez is going to fight again. Brittany Parsons is going to be fighting.
She's getting so good to watch it. Yeah, she's a savage.
Nash Goddard is going to fight. Logan Pettengill. So we got 4 or 5. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. We got 4 or 5 guys fighting in Steel Fist coming up here, the local MMA show.
Is that next week?
No, it's December 20th.
Oh, dude, you just said that. 13th and 20th, right? Yep. What do you think of the bare knuckle fighting?
I'm kind of torn. I appreciate kind of what they're trying to do. I mean, my perspective has always been from the beginning. I want to train with the mindset of I want to be better at self-defense. So that means you should be fighting with bare knuckles, right? Because if you're getting a fight on the street, you're punching with bare knuckles. You don't have the luxury of taping your hands and wearing gloves.
It's a different approach, it seems like, too, because then you got the Mike Perrys and people like that they had a decent career in MMA, but when they shift over, it's a...
But at the same time, they let them tape their wrists so they don't hurt their hands. You know, so surprisingly, they don't hurt their hands as much as you would think. But what I really would like to see is more of like what Jorge Masvidal is doing. He's doing like bare knuckle MMA.
Yeah, the Game Bread production, right?
Because that changes things.
In
like
Florida, right?
If I have to wear these big bulky MMA gloves, number one, I can punch a little more recklessly and not worry about hurting my hands. But then when I'm trying to grapple with you, I don't have the dexterity that I would normally have with my hands. So I would love to see, you know, bare knuckle.
And you do have to be a little more a little more careful, I guess you could say, because you could break your hands easier, right?
Yeah.
More cuts. So hopefully some more head movements in there. But yeah, I was watching some of those fights. And I'm like, dang, it sounds different. Yeah. You could hear it. That was one of the things when I went to BKFC. I was like, oh,
yeah.
You could feel it. You could feel it in your chest.
Yeah. So, I mean, I on one side, I kind of appreciate it because I do like that. But on the other side, I also feel like there's an element of ego to that I don't really like. It's like I'm a bare knuckle fighter.
Yeah,
I'm tough.
More of that like cockfighting barbaric style that people used to
really
the stigma around UFC early on.
I like that people are wanting to fight in that because to them it's a bit of a purity thing, like you know. But at the same time, there's a handful that they do it just because they want to feel tough. So I don't really care for that, but as a whole, I do like it.
I know, especially too some of the people that the matchups you see. I'm like, oh my gosh, people. I mean, I guess that's across the board with most martial arts, but just like the bare knuckle, like I'm like some of those are life-changing cuts.
Well, it's the same kind of thing I don't like to see. Like MMA is originally it started as a way to demonstrate the effectiveness of the Gracies in jiu-jitsu
Mhm.
but a self-defense perspective, right? No time limits, no stand-ups. I'm going to grab you and drag you to the ground and I'm going to drown you. Eventually I'm going to get you out of there. And then they started changing the rules to make it a little more fan friendly, which I get. They had rounds, they had stand-ups, they had gloves. They started implementing more rules, but now it is really just it's just a spectator sport. It's pretty far away from what a real fight is anymore. And now you have people that are complaining. Like they're in an MMA fight. And they're like, why are you going to take me down like a bitch? Why don't you stand up and fight like a man? Like,
What?
I thought we established this a long time ago. This is MMA.
Yeah.
I'm going to drag you to the ground and choke you unconscious. And if you're going to say I'm not a man for that, like, okay, now I'm going to stomp on your head after I choke you unconscious.
Yeah. Bring back the soccer kicks. But that's the thing is like, oh, I'm sorry, I had to wake you up.
Right.
To you want me to stand you back up again so we can I agree.
You want to stand up and be a striker as your preferred style, go ahead, but don't criticize somebody else
or go to kickboxing, right?
Yeah, if you only want to stand up and box, go box.
Yeah,
go do that.
100%.
Oh, but you won't because you're not that good. You're only good in a world of people that want to take you down. Now you're a good boxer.
So adding that extra dynamic, but then you don't utilize it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. Then again too, you do have entertaining people like Alex Pierre, but he also doesn't criticize the ground game. He appreciates
he complain. If you want to try to take him down, go ahead.
Yeah, he's learning how to sprawl pretty well. His takedown defense is getting better and better.
If people want to stand up and fight, go ahead.
But also, he's a technical fighter, so he's fun to watch. But I'm hoping it's some sort of a bell curve because everybody was so worried about like the Dagestan and Russian coming in, but now we have people that are understanding how to meet it head on. I guess except for Hamzat now, but I don't know. You think he's going to get beat?
I don't know. I mean, man, after what he did to DDP, that was surprising.
That was brutal.
Yeah. And again, like some people would say it was a boring fight, but I don't think so. I mean, it wasn't super action packed, but I've never seen somebody get controlled and nullified that well.
I guess for someone like ourselves too, that like understand the sport, like that was gratifying. Like I shouldn't say gratifying, but it entertained me. I'm like, wow, somebody was so dominant.
You appreciate what you're seeing.
Yeah. And he was other than apparently DDP has kind of, he has a sloppy way of going about things kind of, but he gets hit, but he's
successful.
Very successful, very successful. He was the champ and he beat everybody else. Like it was wild. He was on a tear. And then just to see him get dominated and become under the blanket.
I'm real anxious to see Islam is going up to 170 to fight Della Maddalena. Same idea. Like, is he going to be able to do that to him?
Guess we'll find out.
We'll see. Yeah, it's going to be a good fight. I'm looking forward to that one.
I'm excited.
Two guys that are just experts in their respective fields. So we'll see who can do what.
What do you think about Ilya? If Ilya and Islam ever get to run that?
Boy, that'd be a tough one. I don't know. Like Islam is so good at taking everybody down.
He's big too.
Yeah, he's a big boy. But Topuria's the thing that I think will make a big difference is I think Topuria has great boxing, but he's also good on the ground. It's not one of those scenarios where I have to stay on my feet or I lose. Right? If you take him down, people forget he had a handful of submissions in his earlier days in the UFC.
He says he wants it. He's like, test me, please. I'd love it.
Yeah.
so it'd be fun.
Yeah, again, like I said, that's why he's one of my favorites, man. He's so skilled and
Islam gets hit and he look at Ilya's track record for knocking people out, dude. He's got
there's
some
definitely some interesting fights coming up here in the next.
No, I'm excited.
Next few shows, it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. Other than the fights coming up, what do you have anything else going on? Shooting competitions, anything?
So the local
any
club,
other events?
So the national level organization is called USPSA. It's United States Practical Shooting Association, and they have clubs all over the state or all over the nation. In our state locally, it's called SLPSA, SLPSA. That's Salt Lake Practical Shooting Association. So they do matches every weekend. So SLPSA here locally at a local club, they do one on the second and third Saturday of every month. There's one up north that does one like the fourth Saturday. So almost every single weekend there's a match that I shoot here locally. The major matches are more quarterly or yearly or whatever, and I'll do some of those. But the local matches I shoot pretty much every weekend.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
right back into the realm of every weekend.
Every weekend, yes. I'm kind of OCD about things like that, and I'm real obsessive when I find something that I like, and I just go all in.
It keeps you busy, right?
Yeah.
Idle hands are the devil's playground.
Exactly. So yeah, I train cops shooting and fighting during the week, and then I go shoot and fight on the weekends.
There you go. That's fun.
Run the gym at night, and yeah, so I stay busy.
That's way cool. Well, in closing today, so usually what I'll ask is three things. Usually for the audience is just three things that throughout your lifetime, whether it's like skills or advice that you might want to give our guests, just from your lifetime, three things you could think of.
Oh, wow.
And then go ahead and just look right in the camera for that one.
I don't really know. I would recommend that everybody learn how to fight, everybody learn how to defend themselves. And I would say, if you find something that you love to do, pursue it with everything you can, and you'll never look back and regret what you've done. When you get older in life, you won't look back and regret it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate you being
thanks
here.
for having me.
No, you're a legend in the state and across the United States and Japan, around the world. So, and you're such a humble and great guy. I appreciate you. Thanks for everything you do.
I'm glad to do it.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. This is Just in Our Minds. And just remember, get in your hearts, get out of your heads, and have a wonderful day.